Today is January 19th, 2023. This is chapter 33, Things That I Kept from My Parents growing up. And I didn't keep too much from my parents, to tell you the honest truth. There were several things in the book that I talked about, but there have been two or three other little things. And one sidebar note, got a call from Mac last night. He indicated that he has just been called to the bishopric in his home ward there in Gilbert. We're thrilled about that prospect, and doesn't surprise me at all. And we, Vic and I, plan to go down not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, so that I can ordain him to become a high priest, which is necessary to be in the bishopric. But we're looking forward to that trip, and what a privilege to use my priesthood to ordain my son to that office so that he can serve in that bishopric. And as I mentioned in a previous blog or post here, that opportunity will come for all of those in my family, all of you. I am sure of that. Get ready. Rhett and Tyler and Kevin, Garth, all of you have that in you, and it's coming. That opportunity to serve in greater degrees in the kingdom will be there. So we look forward to that. All right, one thing. Let's see. Wanted to point out that we have had a severe drought in our area and all over the West. I'm sure in Arizona, same thing. I know Lake Powell, Lake Mead are just almost non-existent anymore. There's very little water. And so we're in dire need of water. But this winter has been good. The Lord has blessed us with moisture. And it hasn't been all at one big drop either. It's been sustained storms over a long period of time, a foot here, not in town, up in the mountains, but the snowpack is about 150% more than it normally is. We can still use way more. It's going to take years and years to recoup this drought situation, but we're off to a pretty good start, at least in this winter, and I hope it continues. We've gotten rain here in the valleys. In talking with Mom in Soda Springs and Jan, they have about 4 or 5 feet of snow on the ground in Soda Springs, so there's a little difference in the climate here. But in the mountains, we've gotten lots and lots of snow, and hope it continues. And it's only January, so it could continue for another 3-4 months here. In terms of snow in Idaho, and I hope it does. We could use 50 feet of snow up in those upper mountains, and then a slow runoff in the spring, so that it doesn't, it can soak into the ground and replenish the aquifers and the rivers and the streams and the lakes and so forth. Well, that's a little update that way. Some things that I never really shared with my parents once. Like I say, we had a pretty open family, and so they knew almost all of what was going on with all of we kids here. But there were 2 or 3 things that did not mention in the book that no big deal. But when I was in junior high, I think I mentioned that I quit band to play or to go to PE. That was a no-brainer. I told you about Wes Baker chiding my parents for allowing that to happen, thinking that I should have stayed with the saxophone in band that I had for a year and a half or 2 years. I don't know how long I played saxophone, about a year and a half, I think. At any rate, so I went to PE. However, I was always good. I've mentioned, athletic things are my thing. But there was one area where I was not successful, and that is in PE. they had a large rope that came down from the top of the Montpelier High School gymnasium down to the floor, which would be, I don't know, might have been 45, 50 feet, something like that, from the floor up to the rafters there in Montpelier High School gymnasium. Well, part of PE, in addition to playing dodgeball and basketball and all the kickball, all that stuff, was calisthenics, and then and that was okay. But the rope climb is what I'm talking about. One of the things they ask us to do is try to climb this rope. It wasn't just a little teeny hemp rope like you see you lasso cattle with. It was probably an inch and a half or maybe 2 inches around, and so probably 2 inches round. So it was a substantial rope. But to climb the rope, it required your legs and your arms, and you would hold yourself with your legs. You wrap your legs around the bottom of the rope and then pull yourself up with your arms. Well, for the slight of build individuals, that were fairly strong, that was a piece of cake. They did that rather well, really well. For those of us who are a little larger in stature and not, the muscle structure had not caught up with us, that presented a real challenge here. So, well, the little wiry guys, got up there. Not all of them, not everybody made it up to the top, of course, but there were some who did. And being the competitive person I wanted to see that if I could do that. Well, when it came my turn, I got up maybe halfway, and strength gave out, so I had to come back down the rope. Didn't make it up to the top. Didn't only got about halfway. That was embarrassing for me. I didn't like that. So we did it several times. I got higher each time. I don't think I ever made it to the top in that junior high PE class. I got a little higher each time, but I never did quite make it to the top, and that was kind of an embarrassment to me, not being able to do the rope climb. Let's see. I like to swim, and I like to dive off of the low board, but I would never even get up on the high dive. Kids would run off and dive off the high dive, no big deal. But heights never were my big thing. I could dive off the low dive, and that was okay. But boy, that high dive just didn't like that at all. Those heights, didn't like heights. Never have, don't now. I've mentioned that in previous vlogs, but diving, low dive, fine, I could do that, and I was a pretty good diver. But the high dive, I never even got up there. That was more than I wanted to do. This is going to be a shock to most of you. Played Little League basketball. Now, some of my grandsons are playing Little League basketball right now. Well, it's a little different situation. You go in your car and go and meet your team at a gym or something, and play the game and go home. That's no big deal. But when I played Little League basketball, all the kids in Montpelier who wanted to participate would go to the Montpelier High School gymnasium. They'd have different times. The younger ones would go, at one time, and then a little older would be, they'd have another hour and a half or something, and then a little older and so forth. They'd be virtually all day. And it'd go all the way up through junior high. So they started with, first grade. First and second graders would go early, and then the third and fourth graders, and then the fifth and sixth graders, and the older kids would come later. Well, yeah, that was my thing. So we'd go to Montpelier High School and go down into the locker room, the actual locker room of the high school, where the high school players, dressed during, before their games and showers and all that sort of thing. And, you'd take your gym bag and change down in that locker room. Well, the first time I went down there, I don't know, whatever grade, first or second, third, I don't remember what grade, but I remember the first time you had to take off your clothes and disrobe and put on your gym shorts and so forth. With all those, everybody around, it caused me a little discomfort. We'll just put it that way. The old jock strap and so forth. The first time I ever put one of those on, at any rate. But at any rate, that was about the first time. But that was a little disconcerting to me. But that abated rather quickly. Like I say, most of you know all the world's a locker room to me now, so everybody's trying to get me to not disrobe or run around and whatever. But the first time, that was a thing. I remember that very distinctly. In grade school, I don't believe my parents were aware that during the football season, when the Montpelier Bears played, the high school team played at home, quite often, more often than not, I would cut school in the afternoon to go walk up to watch the Bears play football. And when I was in grade school, it was harder when I went to Lincoln Elementary School because it was, willikers, it might have been a mile or a little more about a mile maybe, from the Lincoln School up to where the team played up at the city park. But in the 6th grade, we went to A.J. Winters Elementary School. We were the first class that went there. In fact, I've mentioned this before. The first half of the 6th grade, we were in Bennington. They bussed us out to Bennington. And then the second half, right after Christmas, we went and moved into the A.J. Winters School. I've mentioned that before. Well, A.J. Winters School was only about 4 or 5 blocks away from the city park, so it was easier to cut school. And the game started like about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, after lunch, I'd go to school in the morning. After lunch, we'd have lunch, and then after lunch, I'd walk up to the city park and watch the Bears play football when I was in the grade school. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about here? Oh, yeah, one other thing. The reason I thought I'd try one of these vlogs without glasses, I can't read my writing anyway, but particularly without those, these are not glasses, they're just magnifiers, but I pretty well remember what I was going to say except for this last thing, and this is probably the most important one. I never enjoyed goodbyes, still don't. Goodbyes are not my thing. I don't like them now. I never liked them then. When my parents, they took me up to, and I think maybe I've mentioned this before, they took me to Rick's College for the first time to go to school after high school. Here I am, 17, 18 years old, and, accomplished some things in high school and so forth. But when we loaded up the car and they took me up to Rick's College for the first time before we had a freshman orientation and registration and, the school year began, they loaded me up and I lived in Rigby Hall at Rick's College. It's not even there anymore. They've torn it down. I don't know. That's where I lived. Is in Rigby Hall, up on the 2nd floor of Rigby Hall. We got all my stuff into my room and all that stuff. But the thing I remember most is, when it came time, for them to leave and go back to Soda, I remember not liking that. That made me sad, big time. watch the car leave after saying goodbyes and so forth, and there wasn't a lot of any hugging or kissing or anything like that because we didn't do that sort of thing. But I remember watching the car leave with my parents and my family in it, and here I am still here. I was pretty sad at that point. Now, having said that, I got over it pretty quick. Like I say, it isn't like I went into depression and a hot mess for 6 weeks afterwards or anything like that. But I remember that was an emotional time to watch my parents leave. Also, on my mission, 2 years later, had been away from them for extended period of time during the school year at Rick's College, and had some great times there and enjoyed it, and it was wonderful. But on my mission, now those goodbyes, when they leave you at the mission home and so forth, same deal. I wanted to go on a mission. It was great, but when Mom and Dad and the family left, I was not a happy camper. I was pretty sad there. But again, it didn't last. We got involved in the activities of the mission home and studying and doing all of the meetings and doing all the things that you do to prepare for a mission, and that snapped me out of it pretty quickly. But still, that separation, I've never enjoyed that. When we get done with family reunions, after enjoying several days together as a family, when it's time to go, I don't like that. That makes me sad. When people, Mac and Julie come to visit and it's time for them to leave after being here for several days, that makes me sad. So goodbyes are not my thing. I don't know. I never shared that with anybody and never shared it with my parents, but doesn't last long. But it makes me sad when people leave. I don't know if it came from entrenched in, as you say goodbye to loved ones who have passed away, grandparents, dad, cousins, all of that. It's I don't know, probably had something to do with it, but goodbyes were never will be my favorite thing to experience. So at any rate, not a whole lot there, but thought those were just thoughts I had, 2 or 3 things that I didn't really share with my parents. Thanks very much.